So over there, I'm a research scientist for PARC. PARC is a photosynthetic antenna research center at WashU. And we are right now in Ultrafast Laser Facility that I manage and do research over here. And I will try to do some nice tour about this place. So what we do, what we have, what kind of equipment we use for our research. As you know, it's related with photosynthesis from the flyer what I sent you yesterday. And before we go forward to show, let's say this way, I would like to give you some very brief introduction about first photosynthesis and second laser. So right now we'll go to the whiteboard, like in old school. Okay, right there. Okay, so photosynthesis, you know that. What you learn in school is very easy. For higher plants, so what we experience around us, you take carbon dioxide and water, and you put light, right? And magically you get something what we call sugar, or food, and water, right? Like products. But what we see here actually is very simple. The process of photosynthesis is extremely complicated, and we can divide it to two different stages. One stage is dependent from light, and is associated with the light absorption and conversion of this energy to energy of protons, and that happens in something what we call light harvesting complexes and photosystems. And the second stage that you probably know, it's related with production of these two things in the dark stage, like Kelvin cycle, stuff like that. So probably you know that. So we are focused on this light stage of the photosynthesis. And actually on a very early stage of that is related only with the light absorption and conversion this into energy. So this stage of photosynthesis is actually extremely fast. It's so fast that to do any research associated with that, it is required to use very specific instrumentations. And because we measure some processes, physical processes associated with light absorption or light emission, you can imagine that it's very useful to have some sources that you can use to excite your, for example, proteins or pigments that are involved in the process of photosynthesis and get some informative results from that. So for that purpose, we use lasers. So now everybody says laser, laser, laser. What the laser actually is. So the laser is not think. The laser is actually light, emission, right? Sorry. It's light amplification by I missed one. Light amplification by stimulation of radiation. I'm not sure you can read it, but it doesn't matter. So take the first letters of that. Stimulated emission, I missed one, okay? So we have laser, L-A-S-E-R. So now you can imagine that everything what can emit light actually can be somehow turned into the laser. So imagine we have the molecule, and I'm not sure if you are familiar with any elements like of quantum physics. So the molecule, or whatever it is, can absorb light by promoting electron from something what we call ground state into another excited state. Let's call it S1. So light absorption process is actually capturing the photon that comes from some external source, like sun, and using this energy to move electron from here to here. So now this electron can do two things. Can go back over here and do nothing. We call it internal conversions. So the energy that was stored here will be released as vibrations into the environment and nothing will happen. Or it can go back in one step and we get something what we call emission. So we are very close to the laser. We have emission of light. Now, if something like that happened by itself, we call it spontaneous emission. Now we need to put some stimulating effect on that. So what we usually do, we promote electron to some higher excited state. Let's call it S2. All right? Then it goes back to S1. And then something like that happened. And we chose the material that is highly efficient in energy emission, in light emission. So we mostly see only this effect over here. I changed the color. Now imagine we can do something what we call inversion of distribution. We can create many things like that, like billions of molecules sitting in this higher excited state. Then go here and then start to emit light. And then what we do else? We put something like mirrors. I will switch the color. We have mirror here, okay, and we have mirror here. And now the photons that are emitted, they bounce between them. So they go here, they go back, okay, they go back. So it's like oscillation. But there is something funny. If photon that was emitted comes back, it can perturb that one that sits already here. So we have like a cascade of more photons, and that's the stimulation. And then let's make one of the mirror semi-transparent, okay, on the side. So we will have some small leakage of the light emitted from this, which is now laser, outside, okay? So now we have different kind of lasers. If something like that just happens, we call it optical oscillator, because the process is driven by itself. We can put like external light source. Instead of bouncing them in the cavity, we call it cavity, to these two mirrors, we can put additional source over here, matching to this energy gap, to make this process faster. And that's amplification. And we call it, it will be not oscillator, it will be amplifier. So it will be like oscillator or amplifier. Both of them we will have in the laboratory, I'll show you later. So now we have like two different kinds of laser from the way how they work. It could be either, we call it continuous wave. So this emission just, since it's turned on, it will go forever if we provide this stage over here. Or it could be pulsed laser. And for us, most important is pulsed laser, because we need to provide like individual excitation to our sample and then measure what happens right after that. Okay? So I think that should be enough for you right now. Remember, you see lasers all the time around you. When you have the laser pointed at the classroom, that's continuum wave laser. If you see the Christmas light, it's the same. It's just very cheap. It's cheap because, you know, it's very easy to make right now. It was very difficult like 2-3 decades ago. So now let's go to our laboratory, and I will show you some nice stuff. So we are switching to pulsed lasers. And first, I will introduce you something which we have, and it's an amplified laser. Okay, so for that reason, we have to use something what we call safety goggles. And they look like almost like a sun goggles or sunglasses, but they have very specific filters that cut some colors that, for example, are very dangerous for your eyes, or even the wavelengths we call, that you don't see, like ultraviolet or infrared. And these are very common in lasers. So when you work with lasers, you have to be quite do you have more goggles over there? Do you see them?
I don't see them.
Okay, here is one. Then I think you can stay on this. If you are far away from that, it's okay. Okay, so I know it's funny, but it's necessary. So right now I'm turning on the amplifier we have over here. So you see that. Then could you turn the screen to me so I know what they see at that point? Okay, so those days everything is controlled from the level of computer. It's not surprisingly, I think. It's not a big surprise for you. I remember days where it all had to be, switched by hand, turning hundreds of knobs around you. Now it's much easier. So our instrumentation, our lasers, can you just show the table somehow? So our laser instrumentation is focused on this big table. You can see that we have like very specific table for the laser. I'm not sure that Dan can show it. They are very thick. Oh, you cannot, right? Yeah, maybe you're there, right? Okay, so they are very thick. They have very special legs. Can you show the leg over there? You have a leg over there. Yeah, they are like pressurized legs. There's like pillow of the air. So it's a self-leveling system and shock resistant. And of course, we are in the basement, so it's the most stable support. And we have no windows here. We have controlled environment, so it's like the temperature is very stable and humidity is very stable. And there's like specially designed flow of the, okay? Okay, flow of the air here. So to keep the environment very precisely controlled, which is the best if you want to do high-tech laser work, actually, or research. All right, so let's switch our amplifier. I'll show you how it looks inside, because usually you see the lasers in form of box or boxes, and you have no idea how they actually look inside. Most of people don't know. All right, it's switching on. Then can you somehow drive over here? So far nothing will happen, but then we have this beam that we use to pump the laser. So you remember this arrow that I showed where we put our molecule that's supposed to laze into S2 state? That's our green light. So that's very highly energetic light. And our lasing element, come down closer, sits in this box over there. It's like a special design hermetic box. You see, it looks like a red rod. So that's, Kaslina, you can come over here too, if you want. But so for us, it's very different than what you see in the screen, actually, because we got most of the wavelengths that you see through our goggles. So you see there is like bright red rod in this box, and that's the lasing element. So right now we have what we call spontaneous emission. And when we put another beam that we don't see, so we have like two boxes over here, one to pump the laser, second to stimulate it. So here it's another laser that stimulates the emission from this lasing rod. This is sapphire doped with titanium. So from that we get our amplified beam. And that is actually in infrared or far red. We can actually a little bit tune it. And then from here, we send it to this alignment over here. We call this part pulse shaper. So that will provide us how the pulse that comes out from the laser will look like in terms of the wavelength, or also how broad it will be. Because the principle for our research is to provide the shortest possible pulse. So we call it ultrafast laser, not because it blinks very fast. It does actually, but it's not very important. It's fast because the individual pulse is very short. So in this design, what we have here, it's like 100 femtosecond. And if you remember 1 femtosecond, it's like second divided by 1 with 15 zeros. So it's extremely short number. All right, so right now, I can turn off the lights, you see how bright it is. So from this box, we go actually out here. So we have the one specific color coming out from the laser. And now because we have a bunch of different samples and they are related with photosynthesis as they are photosynthetic pigments or proteins, but not only. We do different research associated with different kinds of nanotechnology. So there could be like semiconductor applications. There could be some medical applications for cancer treatment. There's many possibilities. So what we have to do, we have to have opportunity to produce any possible color that we can use to excite our sample. And for that, actually, we use this alignment over here, these two boxes. And we call it, it's an amplifier, but it's a parametric, it's optical parametric amplifier. So you can use one wavelet coming in and split it, mixes to different energies, and finally get whatever color you want on the outside of that. And then use it for your measurement. I'm not going to do it. I will do it something else, but I hope you will like it too. So sometimes it is required to not use amplified light. We have to use not amplified light and have the same actual opportunity to use not just one wavelength, but be panchromic. So just use whatever you want from the whole rainbow of colors. And for that, we use something what we call optical parametric oscillator, not amplifier. So right now, I'm just warming up the oscillator. So I'm warming up this box over here, and I will send it through this to this instrument over there. And that's this OPO, optical parametric oscillator. It will take a moment, you will see. Is it okay then, if I make like that? So I will have to go over there right now. So right now, nothing happens because we do not convert this beam into the color we want, but I will explain you how it works. So remember that we put like 2 mirrors, and we call it laser cavity. And these are over here. So we have this mirror here, and that one is semi-transparent. So the beam oscillates between them, and some of them leaks through, and we get it out of the instrument. Nothing is going on, Erin, but it will soon. So the point here that we use the beam coming out from this oscillator, passing through our pulse shaper, like that. And that's the wavelength that is not visible for our eyes. It's infrared. And then when it goes to the box, it will be magically converted to blue light in the process we called, excuse me, second harmonic generation. It happens we call it nonlinear crystals that magically can do this work. And they are very tiny. I'll show you one of them. Oops. Just a second, please. Are we okay then? So that's the crystal that sits over there. It's like a diamond. And the price of that is also like a diamond. Okay, so we are not ready yet. It's still warming up, but we are very close. So what I will do, I will use the wavelength that is set to 820 nanometers. That's infrared. Then we will double this. That will give us blue light. So it will go from 820 to 410. And when this blue light, we know it's highly energetic. So we can actually convert it to any other visible light. So from blue light, I will convert it in our cavity using another nonlinear crystal that sits in this box to the green light. And you will see it just in a moment, hopefully. The problem with this kind of instrument is that the alignment is extremely important. So even if you turn it off yesterday, for example, you come back today, there is no guarantee it will work. And you have to do the whole realignment process again. So let's see. Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. Okay. Of course, it's not working. But I try to make it work. So that's the least funny part of research in lasers, that you spend lots of time just doing alignment of your instrumentation. So I have to turn off the light right now because I need to see what's going on. Okay. So do you see the blue light? I guess you do. Now I had to took off my goggles because they cut the blue light, and this is essential for me to see this actually. Can I just? Oh, I know what's the problem. So this instrument is optimized for 820 nanometers, but the default setting when you turn it on is 795. Now it will be blind. So let's go back. I think it's off. Sorry, Harry. It's everyday work. So if you have any questions, you can even ask right now, since we are waiting to warm up this instrument, okay? It won't take too much. I will not do any measurements on the samples. I would like to show you how the laser beam looks like. You know, we have some perceptions from like sci-fi movie, but you can actually see it. It's not really true because you have some medium that could be scattering, and your beam has to be scattered in order to be seen by you. So for that, we actually do some fog. So we'll create some fog in the laboratory on the table. So the beam can be scattered and you can see it. And so, do you have an idea how to make fog without destroying everything here?
Dry eyes.
That's a question to your students. Yeah. Dry eyes, perfect. I have that. So, I'm still waiting. It's warming up. So maybe in the meantime, I will show you our measurement instrumentation. So this is just lasers. So after that, we do like two different processes. So where are we done? Okay. So first we can monitor this emission from the molecule or protein or whatever it is. The important thing is it has to emit light. So, and we use some specific instrumentation to monitor this process and see where it happens in terms of like color and how fast it is. So we measure something what we call emission lifetime. And for that, we have like two different instruments. Can we go over there right now? And they are not maybe very fancy. So this is like very tiny instrument. We call it very simple TC, time-correlated single photon counting setup. So the idea is that you have the sample in the box over here. You provide the laser excitation to the sample, and you measure the emission from the sample under like specific angle. It's right angle usually. Then you use like a monochromator or spectrograph to like focus your detector, which is here, on one of the colors, or in case of like more sophisticated things, what we have over there, you measure like the whole spectrum, all the colors simultaneously. And then you get something that looks like that. So this is fluorescence decay on one of their samples. So you measure how the emission rises and then how fast it decays. And this is time in nanoseconds. So nanoseconds is a second divided by billion, if I remember correctly. Or we can do it in a more fancy way. And for that reason, we have this setup. We call it strict camera system. So the point is that the sample that sits in this box emits light. It goes to this white box over here, which is not open. I don't like to do it. That's a spectrograph. So the idea that from the sample, you have all colors blend together. Here you can disperse them or like split into the rainbow kind of spectrum. And then you can register this in the box over here. And not just colors, but also in the time domain. So how fast these different wavelengths, the different photons from different energies or colors will decay. And after that, you get the result. One of the results I show you over here. Let's find out. It looks like that. Okay. So here is like, this is like this time. So if you just draw one line over here, it's something what you see on the laptop over there. So instead of one line, we have like a 3D sort of 3D color contour from that. Okay, let me see if we can go back to our oscillator. I think we are fine. So let's make it work. Okay, so what I'm doing right now, I'm doing the alignment. And I had to take off my goggles because I will not see the beam actually. I did it 100 times, so I know what I'm doing. It's safe for me. But the people around me, they wear the goggles and they don't see the blue light, what you see actually. So the thing that is the most useful for any laser guy is a business card. It's not for the business purpose, but for the alignment purpose, actually. So you have to do is you put all the reflections into one spot, and finally, it will magically give some light action. It's supposed to. Yeah, voila. Okay. Turn on the light right now. See this? Okay, so right now we are in we call it test cavity, so it doesn't go outside. And what we have to do is to a little bit optimize it for the best performance, like that. There's hundreds of knobs to do it. And then send it to like a real cavity and send it out of the instrument actually. Hopefully it will be possible. Or maybe not. Believe me, it worked just before we started. And it's very typical. Okay, I have good feelings right now. Let's see. Yep. So now you have to adjust the cavity length. So what I'm doing, I'm moving one of the mirror to the position when you have like a multiplication of the wave oscillations that are specific for this color. And there's only one position right there. Voila. Okay, and we have it. Okay, a little bit tuning. And what we can do actually, so I turn the light on still. There's like a special motor. It's like a very precise motor that can control the cavity length because it's not resistant for heat. You know, the elements that are made from metal can expand slightly. So it's a good idea to keep it in optimized position. So it's like a feedback loop. So I just put the power on the software, and it will keep our lasing on. Voila. So now we can go over there. Let's see this better. Just take off for a moment. Don't worry. Wow. Can you close the door completely so we have more dark? Okay, so now we have the beam over here. It goes through optical elements, and we send it somehow to our instruments over there that are used to this to monitor the light emission. So you see the beam laser is over here. It's in many places. You just see the reflections from my hand, sorry. Right, so right now let's make it visible. So for that purpose, Christina, can we turn on the light for a moment? I try to use this dry ice, like Nham mentioned it. It's a very good idea. So I have water somewhere, supposed to have. Okay. So I have water. The glove and the dry ice. I just brought it today. Okay. Voila, looks like snow. I'm not sure you ever experienced anything like that. And then let's see what happens. All right, so now you see the beam. There is also another option we can use, more fancy way. We can use liquid nitrogen actually. So now it boils very fast. That creates very fancy effect too. So I brought some liquid nitrogen, and we can use it too. Christina, can you turn on the light for a moment, please? So this is DUR. There's liquid nitrogen inside. I don't know, you think it's very dangerous. It's boiling so fast. It's not really dangerous. I can put it on my hand. It's just boiling so fast, it cannot really make me anything dangerous. So I will put it there. Okay, could you, Kaslina, turn it off? Let's see if we can see something more. Then can we go over there? And now there is a problem because if there is some dust going through the cavity in the oscillator, it will shut down the lasing action. So look at this. That's my favorite spot to do it. So you see now we have these particles in the fog that can scatter the beam light, and you can actually see it. All right. I think this is all what I wanted to show you for today, and now we can have some discussions and questions from you. I'm very happy to answer whatever you ask me. If I know the answer, of course, because I may not know. This is lovely. Look at this right now. So it has problem with lasing because there are particles right now. So you see that if I put my finger in it, it's not there anymore. No lasing. So you see that the air quality must be superb for this kind of work, because if it's too dirty, it will not work. Simple. Just look at this without goggles now for a moment. Oh, it's like a sparks in the beam. Yeah, cool. Okay, so thank you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the show, and I'm waiting for the questions from you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
The battery is low, then it's blinking.
Oh. Well, let's make sure they can still hear us.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'll change mics.
Can you hear still us, guys?
Yes.
All right. So, yes, please. Questions from the students.
What progress have you made so far?
Okay, let me just shut down. Okay, so we will not have to be in this fancy goggles anymore. So I will shut down the laser completely, and then we can focus on discussion. Okay. All right.
What progress have you made so far?
Sorry, we have to go closer to the laptop, I think, to hear you.
Somebody else.
All right. So did you like it? It's like everyday work. Okay.
Can you hear us over there? Okay.
It's not perfect, but I think I can understand you.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, go ahead and see if.
What progress have you made so far with your laser?
Progress in what actually?
Like, what have you found out about photosynthesis with the research you've been doing with your laser?
Yeah, so actually we are like focused on very different aspects of that. So first is like, because the nature is not unified, it created very different ways of using light through photosynthesis. So there's a bunch of different photosynthetic pigments and bunch of different photosynthetic proteins. And some of them are even not discovered yet, even if they are predicted to exist. So like we work on few novel pigments like chlorophylls, kinds of chlorophylls that have not been studied before because they were discovered like a few years ago. And so we do like a basic science just to understand these things that are just discovered because we have the perfect tools for that. Second, it's like, you can think about application that the nature made it on that way and it's very efficient. Why we cannot do it on the similar way? Like, we use the photovoltaic panels on our roofs, but they are first very expensive still, not very efficient. And they have materials that when you produce them, you actually make a lot of waste, which is not very, environmentally friendly. So it's the idea that you can use what you can learn from this kind of research to design like a new kind of solar harvesting cells of panels that will be cheaper, better, and friendly for the nature. And it's not like you can find this within like a few months, It's a long process usually. And I told you that this application is not just for the photosynthesis. I have a collaboration with people from engineering departments or medical departments. And they have brought interest in this kind of research because it can be applied for their purposes. So we can, and these guys, they develop like a new drugs for cancers or the imaging agents, so you can see the cancer cells inside the body where it is exactly. They think about like doing new, for example, when you build a super tall building, you cannot imagine that somebody will clean it in future because there is like 20,000 windows. So the idea is to make the surface of the windows that will self-clean. It will clean itself if it's shined by light, for example. So we have been working on this kind of materials that can be activated by light. For example, will never rust. So it's quite interesting. You never know what people will bring you here, and I have to study for them. All right. Sorry, maybe it's not the best answer to your questions.
Any other questions?
So the idea, before you make something that can be like commercially available and made for production of something. You have to understand how it will work from the clearly physical point of view. And all the stuff has to go through this kind of research first before it will be applied to anything else. Otherwise, it's like a blind walk.
Go ahead.
In what specific ways does your research make like solar panels more efficient? Like, I don't know if you're able to describe it to us, but
more efficient. So, like, if we think, you know, like how solar panel works. I mean, solar panel works on slightly different way than photosynthesis does. So the energy of light, there's something what is called photovoltaic effect. So there are usually solar panel, sorry, it's a difficult word for me. That's a semiconductor mixture of two different things. And the light has to match the very specific energy in these electrons in this semiconductor layer. And they are promoted to, like, from the valence band to the conductive band, and there is a current. So you get energy in your house. The problem that these panels, they absorb mostly like light that is on the blue side on the rainbow. So the efficiency is very low because our atmosphere is pretty well designed actually to filter blue light from us. So, but plants or bacteria do it on the opposite way. They can adjust these absorption peaks to different positions. So for example, how to incorporate this stuff into the material that can be used for solar harvesting, and that can absorb like the whole rainbow, not just one color. So that's the direction, for example, that could be used for future design of the solar panels.
can you absorb? Can you absorb light that's not visible?
Of course, yes. You know, it's not visible for us, but we have detectors and they can see it because they are designed for that.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Cool.
All right. So my door is never closed. If you ever have interest to come and see something real, not just through online session, you are always welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, then. Should we close the session right now?
All right.
Okay, now, so I hope I'm not sure you learned something, but maybe, I'm not sure it was entertaining too, but that's how how the modern research on photosynthesis looks like those days. Without something like that, you cannot really do anything useful and push it forward, the knowledge about that. And I thought that somebody will ask, okay, so how much I need to spend to buy something like that? Do you have any, are you curious about that actually, or not? So if you look at the table, then, like Ferraris or Lamborghini, what's there? Okay, so if you look like this, over there, the laser system, that's Lamborghini price, okay? You go back here, that system, just few boxes, but there's much more under the table and in another site in the wall, because we put like power supplies and drivers back from this room so they do not generate any noise and heat. Like this system over here, just few boxes. That's Ferrari car. Okay? That system over here also. What's another nice car? No, Tesla, it's too cheap. Tesla is too cheap. Bentley?
Yeah,
Rolls-Royce, I think we're fine. Yeah, so it's like over $1 million if you want to design and construct laboratory like that. Okay.
Crazy.
Yeah, I got another question for you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I was reading on the website that there's been a lot of work done with bacteria, right? So why bacteria and not green plants? Why bacteria?
I mean, bacteria first because they grow very fast. So, for example, if you have like a desire to produce biomass, for example, you have like a waste waters from the sewer or whatever, and these things are best to grow them there, and you can grow them and make biomass and use it for like like a cheap source of the energy, for example. They are the best because they grow extremely fast. The point is, like, for example, you can make it even growing faster. So, and for that, there is something like a genetical modification. So you can modify how they actually make all these light harvesting complexes.
Right.
And you can study how this modification will affect them, and and see if they can grow better or worse or the same, because they can harvest, for example, more light more efficiently.
Okay.
Because the overall picture of the protein changed somehow, and how this change will affect the ability of light harvesting.
Okay, so does that mean that there are implications in the future? Maybe we can genetically modify plants. I think that was one of the questions that was asked earlier. So we can genetically modify plants to be even more.
Yeah, for example, like one example is that, like, very popular crop in the US is corn, and most of corn is already modified, even though people don't want to think about it.
Right.
So the way, they have bunch of leaves on the long stick, right? So you can imagine that pretty much the light that is absorbed on the top of it, but it's not absorbed at the bottom of it, right? So let's design the plant that will absorb just a little bit on the top, and the light can go through the leaves to the bottom. So you can imagine that the overall light that will be absorbed by this plant will be much better than like a normal corn. So it can grow much faster. So instead of like one-time harvest, we can have like 2 harvests per year. Right. There's a demand for the food, and pretty much in like 20, 30 years, it will be a big problem for overpopulation of the globe.
Right.
So that's, you can think about it in many different ways.
Okay, now I also read that you've been successful in synthesizing in the lab I don't remember the exact name of the pigment, but I think it came from a bacterium, right? That something rhodopsin or something like that. I can't remember. But so it's been synthesized in the lab. Is that correct? Is that also done at your lab, or is that?
I mean, you get the samples that are made somewhere else. So, for example, are you talking about like bacterial chlorophyll F from the bacteria, like a green sulfur bacteria?
Right.
I'm not sure. Like, there's like a prediction how many chlorophylls can exist on the Earth. And it's almost filled, except there was like one spot and nobody could find it in the nature. But finally, they could do this modification and force bacteria to make it. So we could also study that one. And for example, like good example to improve like high plants. So high plants, they utilize like 2 chlorophylls only. It's chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B. And they absorb mostly in the blue and red side of the rainbow.
Right.
But there is another chlorophyll which is very similar to them, it's chlorophyll F. It was recently found in Australia, in the ocean actually, over there. So it's like the F differs from A slightly, but it can absorb a little bit more red. And when you look at the spectral coverage of sorry, I'm looking at the laptop, I don't know why I should look there. If you look at the spectrum of the sunlight coming to us, to the ground level, actually there's lots of photons that are not used on the far red side of it. So actually there's huge waste. So why not, instead of chlorophyll A and B, put also chlorophyll F to them, okay? And increase like the capture of the light by 15–20%. It means that you can increase the speed of growth of your plant by the same number as well. So, it's like 10% there, 15 there, but in overall, it will be a huge change in the food production, for example, or biomass production, whatever it will be needed. We will need it. We don't think about it right now because we have plenty of food, but believe me, if the population will grow like that for next 20, 30, 50 years, that would be a really big challenge for us. Maybe not for us, but for them, yes. So they have to think definitely about them.
So,
I'm talking about students. They are younger.
all right. So in terms of maximizing the efficiency of solar panels, how far? I should say, how close are we to being really, sort of weaning ourselves off fossil fuels? Would you say? What's your prediction? Is it within the next few decades in terms of increasing the efficiency of our solar technologies, or is it pretty low, far off?
Yes, so efficiency of solar technology is like 20% now. So the 20% of light captures is actually converted into usable energy. That's really low. So far, it's like not a good competition for fossil fuel that somehow it gets, you see every day, cheaper, not more expensive. Like, the gasoline and electricity, probably not, but definitely gasoline is get cheaper. But it won't be cheap forever. We have to take it under consideration. It's just a blip for now, but we have that we have so much supply on the market that it's so cheap. But we have to think about it that it's not infinite source of the energy. It will go away within like hundreds of years, or it will be so deeply in the earth that it will be very costly to get it. But we have sun that emits light. Probably it's like 1 second light from energy in the sunlight. It's like what we consume within one year, the whole globe population. So, and this is infinity. It will stay for billions of years. We will not stand for a long time, definitely. Not so long time, I think. So that's like the ultimate goal, to use this source of energy that is abundant and free. You don't have to do anything to get it. Just to build a good device, and cheap device, so people will use it. All right.
Yeah, we got one more question here if you got time for us.
Oh, you said that the atmosphere was really efficient and like, I don't know, I guess diffracting the light. Is there any like projects in place to make a big solar panel in space or something?
No, that's not good idea. Think about how much it will cost to put them there. Simple.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah. So it's definitely science fiction only. And it will be science fiction forever.
All right.
There are technologies that are developed right now to make the solar panels that can absorb more light, not just like the blue edge of this. So, like, use some material and you dope it. We call it, like, you put some bodies into that can change the absorptive properties of that. And this effect is called, it's fancy name, it's a surface plasmon resonance, something like that. And I did some studies on that also here for guys from nanotechnology. So that could be future also. Who knows?
Gotcha.
So they push the border toward more light. I mean, like that these materials can absorb more light and be more efficient.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. Thank you for questions. I think we are running out of time right now. It's almost 11 and probably you will be busy.
All right. So thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. That was a pleasure to talk with you and show you something what we are doing here, usually behind the door, so nobody can see it.
All right, great. Thank you again. We appreciate it.
All right. It was my pleasure, Nan.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right.